blame Russia train seems to have absolutely no end. Now, we know by now that there's been the very long claim by the United States that the US 2016 presidential election was interfered with by Russia, except here's a new one. A report in the UK alleges that Russia interfered in the 2014 Scottish referendum. Now, it doesn't exactly say whether or not Russia interfered in favor of Scottish separation or remaining in the UK. That seems to be a detail that the report wasn't really focused on. It was really more focused on trying to make the argument that Russia had interfered with it. Now, again, with all these accusations that Russia did this or Russia did that, you're gonna need some. You're gonna need some evidence. Of course, unfortunately, that's not forthcoming in the actual report, which I will link you to in the description. Now, this report that was put out to denounce this whole situation also blamed UK previous UK prime ministers for failing to investigate fears of Russia interference in the 2018 EU referendum. That's right. Apparently, it's like really, really important to Russia whether or not England remains in the EU that they allegedly interfered. It's amazing. This is almost turning into like a Jewish conspiracy kind of thing. Anytime something wrong happens or a vote doesn't go their way, it becomes it's the Russians. I mean, that's basically where we are at this point with this. So the UK spy agency MI5 also singled out for not having provided adequate evidence. So it's kind of weird. They're also attacking the MI5 for not putting out enough evidence. It's strange. Now, of course, Moscow has denied all allegations that they have interfered in UK politics, particularly the Scottish referendum, which I'm not really all that sure how that would serve Russian interests. I mean, it would undermine the power of the UK in general to lose a significant portion of it. But is that enough for Russia to actually get involved in it? So the problem is that now Russia's being blamed for everything. It's become the local boogeyman for anything that, let's be honest, a NATO country doesn't like. So when you have a situation like this, you're pretty much going to have to back up what you're saying with some kind of evidence. And I know that can be kind of, complicated. Except, here's what's really, really telling about this whole situation. Not only is the MI6 saying that Russia did this and then criticizing MI5 for not doing enough, guess who was responsible for the MI6 report? Christopher Steele. As you recall, that is the guy behind the infamous Steele dossier used against Trump and claimed that Russia stole the election for him in the US. So that guy. The guy who already doesn't have any credibility whatsoever because of his baseless accusations. And the supposed sexualized recording of Trump in a hotel room with, the story. It also comes with American journalist Annie Applebaum. I did a video on one of her articles way back where she basically admitted capitalism was not a democracy and then began to argue why. Basically, she admitted that capital was as an international phenomenon was beyond the control of the democracies of the West. But rather than admit that it was inherently undemocratic, she asked for a way to make them democratic, which is really interesting how she just completely missed that part. And she's also got some gulag stuff, 50 billion dead, the same kind of thing. American-British financier Bill Browder and British security expert specialist Edward Lucas. Those two are significantly less important in this than, say, Christopher Steele, which I think is the main point here that should cast a lot of doubt on this. It's amazing how this former MI6 guy just manages to find his way into actual intelligence work nowadays. Rather than using, say, actual MI6 people. I mean, you would think that, right? Like, if you were going to use your intelligence agency to make accusations of people, you'd use current members of your intelligence agency. But, what do I know? Now, this Russia report has been published 9 months after Boris Johnson said that it had been received. And they had to spend all this time redacting certain information that was too sensitive to the public. Maybe would put some of their sources in general, etc. So, I mean, again, this is coming right down to the same old thing: Russia, Russia, Russia. Blaming Russia for absolutely everything because it is rising as an economic superpower. Now, I do see this as very interesting that all of this is now occurring at a time when Russia is producing a pipeline to supply energy resources to Europe, particularly Germany. And this is something that the U.S. has actually threatened Germany over, that if they go ahead with this, that Donald Trump is going to put sanctions on the Germans. So you can imagine why I'd be very skeptical of this claim that Russia did this, Russia did that, all the time, without any solid evidence. And then in the past with the whole Skripal poisoning case and the glaring black holes that exist in that whole story that don't make any sense. Yeah. See, the thing is, I actually get the feeling that a lot of people are not going to believe this, or at least not as many people as would previously have believed in it, because of one simple principle. If you go to the well once too often, you'll find it dried up and empty. And I think this whole blame Russia thing is about starting to reach that point. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.